Welcome to the Steve Stine Guitar Podcast, brought to you by guitar-Zoom.com. If you want to improve your guitar playing, keep listening. If you want to improve even faster, go to guitar-Zoom.com, where you'll find all of Steve's premium courses, masterclasses, and memberships that'll help you quickly and easily improve your playing. Now here's your host, Steve Stine.
Welcome to a special episode of the Steve Stine Guitar Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to Marlene Hutchinson. Marlene is an award-winning guitar instructor and the host of Tips for Guitar Playing Success podcast. She is very popular. She's got a program called Learn to Play Guitar in a Day, which I am very excited to talk about, which has been seen by millions on PBS, CBS, NBC, NPR, lots of three-letter words like that, and several news publications, and is a 2014 Player's Choice Award nominee. My goodness. How are you, Marlene?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
Thank you. You too.
Yes. So tell us a little bit. What got you into your love of music, specifically, obviously, guitar, but tell us more about if there's any instruments you play, what got you into that thing?
Yeah, sure. My mother said that I have loved singing since I could make any noise. So I would say my first instrument or love was singing, my vocal instrument. But in my younger years, when I was 7, my parents had my sister and I taking piano lessons. So I learned piano at a young age and still play piano. Added clarinet into the mix when I was in my school years and played that for quite a few years. I don't know if I could play that again, though. I haven't picked it up in a while. I would probably sound like a wounded whale right now if I tried clarinet, but I do have some training in that. And then, interestingly, I didn't add guitar into the mix until I was an adult. It really was just an idea or a concept that I had after, interestingly, 9/11. Those events really shook me. I just really remember how much making music brings so much peace and joy to me. And so I thought, wow, I should play piano more, but I wanted to try something new. So it was a New Year's resolution that next year. And then I got a starter guitar and a group lesson, and I was strumming and rocking and rolling right from the beginning, just loving it. And what I love about guitar too is it goes well with singing. So as I mentioned, singing's one of my things that I love to do. So it just goes hand in hand. And that's really how I got my launch into guitar.
Wow. So when you started playing, did you take lessons or did you learn? Because this would have been after 9/11, so online wasn't really a thing by then. So did you do local lessons or did you go to a school or anything like that?
Yeah, what I did, I had young kids at the time, so I didn't have a lot of time to devote to it. I was also an elementary teacher. I just found a group class at the local adult school at night situation. So it was a group lesson, and the lady taught me. It was such a joy, and she had an English accent, and she really just learning to play guitar, just really fun and interesting and pretty doable. And that's what I've tried to impart to people. That's how I got started, was literally a group lesson at the adult school and just grew from there.
Well, that's great. So once you started playing, did you join any bands or anything like that? Or did you start doing some lessons on your own or what did you do?
Well, I got what I lovingly call performance ADD. I was so excited about playing guitar that I played for anyone, anywhere, anytime. My kids in their classrooms, I would use it as a teaching tool. In my classrooms, like we were doing weather or math, I'd make up some little song and play the guitar. And so really performed there. But as far as bands, I joined the church band and performed with them. And then I started doing local small gigs. I live in Southern California, and there's this wonderful outdoor art festival in the summer called the Sawdust Festival, and they have performers throughout the day and evening. And so I wangled my way in there and started playing there. So just really wherever and however I could play and share music was my mantra.
And then, of course, with COVID and everything, nobody's really doing any of that. But had that not be happening, is that still something that you do?
Somewhat, I would say my teaching gig, teaching guitar, really is more of my focus than performing. although I do still perform. And yes, if COVID weren't happening, I would absolutely perform there still. I jam with friends or will jump in with a band now and then, but really my teaching gig is my focus.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So, as far as teaching goes, of course, we've got the course that we're going to be talking about. Do you do private lessons? Do you do things like that as well?
Yes, absolutely. I do private one-on-one lessons virtually, obviously, now. For people who lived locally, I was doing it in person as well, but it's all virtual. But I also teach like clinics. I go to universities and colleges, or I should say, I used to go to universities and colleges, but also things like, I don't know if you've heard of Guitar Town. It's a huge event in Colorado, and it's just the amazing performers, but they also have clinics and workshops. And so I teach things like that. I also teach for Gamma and NAM. A lot of it when they want to bring someone in to show people how easy it is to get started playing guitar. And again, wherever and however someone wants to learn. But yes, the long answer to your very short question was yes, I teach privately.
And I totally understand. I mean, nowadays, especially, it's that diversification is very important because for me, I do all of those things as well. The days of just sitting and just doing one on one lessons all day long now, being able to travel and do clinics and things like that are not only very important, but they're very exciting, as I'm sure you love that stuff too.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, let's go into because this is what I'm really excited about here this whole thing learn to play guitar in a day. When did you and how did you come up with the idea of this?
Yeah, that's a fun story. I learned to play guitar, and as I mentioned, I would play it in my kids' classrooms, in my classrooms. And I had some people at the school that came up to me and said, "Hey, you picked it up fast, and I know you just started, but could you show us a little bit about how to play guitar?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I started a year later a very simple program. Full disclosure, hey, I just started too, but just really simple, playing simple chords, easy strumming, basic songs, just to really get people launched. And in that progression of that evolving and growing, I had some people say to me, "Hey, it'd be really awesome to learn guitar, but I'm so busy. I don't really have time to do weekly lessons." Or I also heard, "I just would like to try it out and see if I think I would like it." And I thought, wow, I wonder if you could do a one-day thing. So I put a one-day program together and did a little R&D. My first workshop, I had 3 people, but just really, I wanted to see, is this concept doable? And it's really based on that initial program that I created, which is very simple. I mean, in one day, I teach some basic chords, simple strumming, simple tablature, a little bit of picking, several songs that you can play. It's really based on that program that I teach, have always taught. Whenever I even have private students, I start everybody the same way because my theory is you don't start with algebra, you start with 1 plus 1. But more importantly, I have always felt like, hey, we can all do this. I mean, I'm not a guitarist that started as a child, I'm not a child prodigy. I started later. I'm a late bloomer to guitar. But really, I think the message is it's not that hard to do, and you can do it and you can get started. I think what a lot of people feel is the challenge to learning to play guitar is that they're not going to be able to do it. Well, in one day, you're not going to be Eric Clapton. I tell everybody that. So it really is perspective or setting your expectations. And one day you are playing chords and strumming and songs and doing a lot. I even go into guitar care and things like that. So it's really an all encompassing opportunity to launch. But it started because I had people say, "I'd really like to learn to play guitar, and I just don't have time for those weekly lessons." That's the story.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, as a guitar instructor at any level, trying to make sure that you figure out how to make things that fit into their schedule is so important. So, with you, if you had to find a challenge in teaching, what do you think is challenging about being a teacher? I mean, maybe in a group setting, but certainly in one on one, when you have multiple students and you're trying to reach them, what do you find is the biggest challenge?
Well, have this conversation about pre-COVID and COVID. I think with COVID, obviously, it's really been the pivot of figuring out how to successfully engage and give people the skills and things that they need so that they can advance, even though we're not in person. Because previous to COVID, it was really nice to have someone one-on-one or in a group, but where you were in person so that you could say, oh, no, no, move that finger up just slightly. Oh, you got it. And so it really has been an interesting pivot from a teaching perspective of really have to listen to how it sounds. I can see, but maybe the angle's not quite right. And maybe their finger is muting a neighboring string, and that's why it's not quite as clear as it could be. That's definitely been an interesting challenge. I wouldn't say problem, just a pivot. It's just been a way that we have to do things differently. But for me, when I'm teaching anyone, whether it's a group or an individual, I really want to understand what they want to accomplish. That to me is like the end all. I could teach the intro riff to Hotel California, but if that's not their gig or if that's not their thing, they're not going to be excited and they're not going to play it. So I really try to zone in on what each person wants to do. And I have to take really careful notes when I'm teaching because I want to make sure that when I pick back up, I go, okay, wait, now we talked about this last time. Let's do that. So that's really important to me too. And in a group setting, you have to gauge what all the people want to do. So that can be a challenge in itself, but it's absolutely doable.
Right. So right now with COVID and with your students, you're doing, I would assume, pretty much everything online. Do you foresee once, please God, that we come out of this thing and we start moving it back into some semblance of normalcy, do you see yourself continuing to do this online thing to a certain degree, or are you pretty much ready to move back into doing in person with everything?
That's a great question. I love the in-person experience. I love it from a teaching perspective, and I love it from the student perspective of them really understanding, feeling, hearing, touching, seeing. I think that you can't replace that. I think virtual, we're so blessed in the technology and the world we have now that we can still continue using technology. But I anticipate that moving forward, I don't think things are going to open up completely right away. I think they'll open up little by little. So I think it's going to be a mixed bag of both in person, or I hope in person and virtual. But one thing I've seen too, I also do some corporate guitar workshops, which is a fun, interesting little avenue. I found that because of COVID, they really embraced the virtual experience because so many people from so many parts of, say, a company can all learn together. And if they're in different cities or different buildings or whatever. So I think it's going to be a hybrid experience as it moves forward. I certainly hope I get to continue doing my in-person events because they're so wonderful and it's so great to engage live with people.
And you're right. There's no replacement for that for sure. Unfortunately, we just have to keep doing what we're doing, but I certainly hope the same thing. So when you teach, do you teach other, I mean, you mentioned all these other instruments that you play as well. So do you teach things other than guitar, or do you primarily just teach guitar at this point?
I pretty much focus on guitar. I do also play ukulele. I should have mentioned that, which isn't a big stretch from playing guitar. So I have taught people a little, or I have not a little bit of ukulele. The people I've taught ukulele, I teach a lot, but I've done a little bit of lessons in ukulele. I've done a little bit of vocal lessons, but I wouldn't even put that on my resume or bio because it's not my focus. Guitar is my focus and passion. It's funny, from that first strum at that group lesson I went to, never forget it. I sat down with that guitar. I was just so excited that I was going to get to try this. And she had us do our first chord and we strummed it. And the Alleluia chorus was singing for me. And I want everyone to have that experience. I just feel really passionate about that.
What you're saying is exactly why, as an instructor, it's important for us to try and motivate as much as we can, because as inspired as you were from that teacher, our obligation is to inspire to that level for the next group of kids that are growing up, or the young adults that are growing up that are going to wind up doing exactly what we do.
Yeah, I think motivation and inspiration is a huge component of what we're really obligated or responsible to do. And there again, I think things like finding the music that students really want to play or perform, or if they need a performance venue, giving them ideas pre-COVID, coffee shops and getting groups together and play in front of each other, things like that. Just anything to motivate and inspire someone to continue on the journey, because it is a journey. I mean, even if you're Eric Clapton, you're still learning new things. John Mayer did a webinar during COVID, and he was like, I'm still figuring things out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey, and staying with it is what's going to bring you the rewards. So keeping them motivated is a big part of our jobs, right?
I couldn't agree more. That's absolutely true. The education part of it is very important, but if they're not motivated, they're not going to want to pick it up. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far and you're getting motivated to take your guitar playing to the next level. Please do me a favor and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. It'll help the show grow and reach more rock stars like you who want to improve their guitar playing. Also, I'd love to know what parts of the episode you liked, as well as what you learned. So please share this podcast and tag us at guitar-zoom.com on your social post. And now, let's get back to the podcast. So if there was one legacy that you could leave for the music industry, what you just said was good enough, but is there something that you could think of if you could leave something for the music industry? What would it be?
Nobody's ever asked me that question. Great question. I had a wish for a legacy that I could leave with music is I think it's important for people to realize and understand whether you're 7 years old or 70 years old, you can make music and you can make music successfully with an instrument. You can have fun. It really, making music can be a lifelong companion for you, and it's doable. And I think that's what I've really tried to get across with my programs is you can do this. It's not that hard. It's all relative to perspective. And I think anyone and everyone, no matter what age, no matter what gender, no matter what nationality, can pick up a guitar and play it pretty easily right away. And that's the legacy that I would love for people to know.
That's great. I don't do private lessons anymore. I just do everything online, the social media thing and guitar courses and stuff. But I find that there's just so much competition nowadays because of social media. Everybody feels like they have to be doing a certain thing. And it's just so important to exactly what you just said, remind people that they don't have to fit in somebody else's box when it comes to music. I have my oldest daughter who's now 20. I've played on large stages before, and some of the most fun I have is performing with her. She'll sing and I play acoustic. And it's just a very special thing. But she picked up the guitar, and I grew up in the time of Joe Satriani and Eddie Van Halen, and she grew up in the time of Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift. So guitar for her is exactly what you were saying. It's an instrument that supports her voice. She's got a very beautiful voice. Where for me, it was just the opposite. I have a very horrendous voice, and that's why I do all these other things on my guitar. But I've never once wanted her to be like me. I want her to be what she wants to be.
I love that statement of you don't have to fit in someone else's box. I think some people too who, let's say, never played guitar and have always wanted to play guitar, because I do come in not come in contact. I can't say that anymore. But I have met people, they always wanted to try it. They love, and you fill in the blank, John Denver, James Taylor, Taylor Swift, whatever, you name it, Sheryl Crow, but they never learn to read music and they don't know how to play or anything. So they know they won't be able to do it. And it's like, wait a minute. Yes, you can. There's so many ways to go about this. And there's only one James Taylor. There's only one Taylor Swift. And that's all we need. Now we can play their music, but you can be your own James Taylor or your own Taylor Swift. And I know your podcast, you give some amazing demonstrations of some really intricate stuff. And it's like, hey, that is so cool. I may not be able to do that right now, but I'm excited because I know that I can build up to that. And that's something I can do in the future. And I think everyone needs to know that you got to start somewhere. Joe Satriani, Taylor Swift, you name it, Eric Clapton, all started the same way, not knowing anything. They weren't born with a guitar in their hands, although some people would argue that it sounds that way.
Sure.
But they had to start somewhere, and so do you. And so you get started, and then you just keep building.
This is just off topic, but do you ever find when you're teaching that maybe one of your students decides that they want to sing, or do you do any vocal lessons and things like that as well?
I have and I do. I have training both for myself vocally, for teaching vocals, but I really don't train. That's a whole, I think, full-time career, and rightly so, because that takes a lot. And just like teaching guitar, we want to make sure we're teaching guitar the right way. People are able to really gain it. I don't want to spread myself too thin across the musical world. I do have my arm in different avenues, but I think just sticking with something that you're really good at. I'm not Eric Clapton. I'm not Joe Satriani. I'm not. I can name all the people I'm not. I'm Marlene. I'm a decent guitarist. I wouldn't say I'm the best guitarist on the planet, but I think my gift is being able to impart to people how to play guitar. And so that's what I like to do. But actually, to go back on something you mentioned when you talked about your daughter, my son plays bass guitar. So when I can wrangle him home, he's serving in the Marine Corps right now, but when he's home, we'll play together. He'll play the bass line of Brown Eyed Girl, and I play, and it's so much fun. And the other thing, it really playing guitar is just so much fun. I have a group of friends and we all play guitar. I was going to mention our name. Anyway, we get together and we jam, and it's so much fun because we'll play a group song together that someone suggests, and then someone will do a solo, and then some more group songs and solos and things like that, and just jam together. And that's one of my favorite things about guitar. I think it brings people together in such a beautiful way.
The reason I asked about your vocal is because you're absolutely right. Sometimes you'll get a student, oftentimes, that just have, again, this stigma about guitar that it has to be on a particular level. And then when they start playing, they realize, oh, you mean I can strum and sing at the same time?
Yeah.
Or what you just said about jamming. I often worry that jamming with other musicians is becoming a lost art because we spend so much time in our room practicing things. I understand and I appreciate the fact that you want that to be really good or you want that to be really fast. I think that's wonderful because I've been there myself. But there's a really magical experience about getting together with a group of people and just making music, and not because it's hard or easy or high or low or rock or blues, or it's just music. And there's a real magical thing about that. That's something that I always think is trying to remind people, not trying to talk about me, but I did a clinic in Nashville a couple of years ago, and I had everybody that attended the clinic had to play on this stage, either guitar, bass, drums, sing, and half the group was just terrified. And then at the end of the day, I kept trying to kick them out because they were telling me I had to close and nobody wanted to leave. Everybody wanted to stay. And I was like, well, now you understand what this whole thing is about. You were scared because you thought you had to be so good to experience this. And now you're realizing that it can be fun. It doesn't have to be this contest.
Absolutely. I have a couple of things come to mind. I have one student who wanted to learn guitar. He met one of my students on an airplane, of all things. So he came to me. I started teaching him guitar, and I'm like, and now you're going to sing while you're playing this. He's like, I don't want to sing. I just want to play guitar. And I said, well, okay, if you learn with me, you're going to have to sing along because that's the way I roll. Sorry.
Sure.
Everybody teaches differently. If it doesn't work, my feelings aren't hurt. But anyway, so he started to sing with his songs. Well, now there's no way he wouldn't sing while
See,
he's
that's
playing.
awesome.
He loves to sing. He's the first one to tell you, Marlene made me sing, but boy, I'm sure glad she did. It's so much fun. But on the topic or on the concept of having everyone play and jam together, I think we've discovered more in these last 13, 14 months than we ever did how much we miss being around each other and other people. And guitar is just one of those instruments, like kids and dogs and guitar. They just bring people together, right? And
Right.
getting together and playing, like this group of friends that I play with, one really loves fingerstyle playing. One really loves hard picking with a flat pick. People have different flavors of ways they like to play. And when you play in a group, you have to work out, it's almost like a conversation. You have to go, well, I'm playing this while they're playing that. How is that going to work together? Let me see. Let me adjust. Oh, they're going to adjust. That even could be with the tempo. Someone's playing it really fast and you want to play it slow, and you have to figure out a way. But it's so beautiful that when you come together with your differences, whether that's your style of playing or whatever, you find a way to gel together. And there's just this beautiful psychological effect of it. I mean, I'm always feeling so happy after I get together and jam with my friends. And the other thing you mentioned, how you had the students play at the clinic, that's so important. I do twice a year an event called Guitar Fest, and it's for my private students. And some of them are virtual, so they join in online. I have a big screen for the Zoom people. And everybody does a solo. We do some group songs together. And I can't tell you how often, every time, when there's a newer student who's never been to Guitar Fest, they're like a deer in headlights. And I just keep saying, all you have to do is get up there and play Row, Row, Row Your Boat. I don't care what you play.
Right.
I just want you to get up there and play your music, however you want to play it. And if you have bloopers, you're going to see we all have bloopers. Some play through it, some stop and restart. It's what happens, but it's just the way it is. Well, almost inevitably every time I have that newer student come up to me and go, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. When's the next one? I'm going to play this song at the next Guitar Fest and that one. And you're right, like getting them away from the microphone. It really helps people open up.
Well, and you think about it, what you're talking about right now is just as important, if not more important, than the fundamentals of whether it's a 3-finger or 4-finger G chord or whatever it might be. Yes, those are important, but these are human interaction things that really make music music. I'm so glad that you're doing things like Guitar Fest, because those things are the things that once people experience those, they want to experience it again. There's this thing overseas. I don't think it's ever been in America, but I played in Germany the year before COVID hit at this thing called Rockin' 1000. I don't know if you've ever heard of this thing, but
No.
they get 1,000 musicians together.
Wow.
And you play in an arena. So we played in Frankfurt in front of like 10,000 people or whatever it is. So they've taken that idea of bringing people together. So there'll be 300 guitar players, and it really is. It's 1,000 people. We broke a record in Germany of having more than 1,000 performers, but everybody there isn't a virtuoso. It's just people getting together and having this massively incredible musical experience in front of a really large audience. And I just think what they've got going is such an amazing thing. Yeah, it's really, really neat.
That sounds really great. I saw something online, maybe it was even that, but there were 1,000 people in the stadium. They had the guitars, they had the drums, and it was, I think, like a crazy train or something, like a really,
Yeah.
is that it?
Yeah. Every year they choose different songs and then they
Okay.
play, I don't know, 10 shows or something like that. And usually they're overseas. Like I said, I don't think they've ever been in America, but there's all of this practice that you have to do to prepare for it. And you have to wear in-ears. So when you're all playing together, because it's just chaos, there's counting in your ears and all this stuff. So you keep track of everything. But I met so many people out there that obviously have seen my stuff before, but are telling me stories of how amazing it is to experience this musical thing. And I thought they just really tapped into something incredible where you don't have to be a great drummer or a great piano player or a great guitar player. You can find your space. And who wouldn't want to perform in front of 10,000 people? But you don't have to do it alone. You do it with a large group of people and you feel like you're part of a community. And I just think I would love for that to come over to America and have.
Oh, yeah. Let's, whoever powers that be, let's do it.
Yeah.
Who else does something, I guess, along those lines is NAMM. They have a World Music Day. It's coming up on June 21st. And literally, it's about making music. And if you can, making music together. But I mean, you could go out on your sidewalk in front of your house and play your guitar. Just make music to the world. And I think music is, like you said, it's a great thing to work on your skills on your own so that nobody sees all your bloopers that you're having. And you wrap your mind around, wait, how do I really want to play this? But then sharing it. I think that's the next step that is so super important. And I'm impressed with how people have found ways to share their music virtually. I have a friend who's in a band and they stopped touring. And so they started doing Facebook Lives and had people on the chat request songs and things like that. And it's really made people get creative or more creative about sharing the music. And social media has certainly made it a useful tool. But again, we want to be together making
Yeah,
that
that's right.
music.
Well, that's so awesome. Can you just let us know what's the best way for people to find you online? And if you have music available, where would they be able to hear anything like that?
Yeah, I'm available pretty much everywhere. I have a website, marlenesmusic.com, and I'm on Facebook. I'm on all the usuals, Facebook, Instagram. What are some of the other ones? Twitter. My
It's a
brain is
full-time
fading
job.
on me. I call it that fog that we've all experienced. Anyway, I'm on all the social media, LinkedIn, and you name it. And as far as finding things that I have, my YouTube channel is probably the best place to go. You can see things about me teaching, some of my music. And social media has made it a great way to share the guitar love, I feel like.
Right, that's right. You're absolutely right. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out to chat with me for a while.
Sure. Well, it's been great, and I really appreciate you inviting me to be a part of your show.
Absolutely. Well, you take care. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
All right. And as I like to say, play on.
Awesome. Take care. Bye, everybody. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to learn guitar even faster, go to guitarzoom.com and click the Get Started button to get access to courses that are right for your interest and skill level. Again, go to guitarzoom.com and click the Get Started button.